knew you were almost at the point of no return. My daddy was going to spank my blessed assurance and I would be able to use it for a month. Proverbs 29 gives us a sober, solemn verse. A man who hardens his neck after much reproof. A man who hardens his neck after much reproof will suddenly be broken. Say it. Broken. Beyond remedy. Broken beyond remedy. These words clearly convey a warning and a promise. And in this verse, God is revealing something about himself. He's revealing to every man who stubbornly refuses to listen to his voice, relying on a deceiving and deadly sedative to hush his fears. The New International Version says that it's rendered stiff-neck. Stiff-neck. In other words, this person who hears but doesn't respond. A person who is deafened by his or her own stubborn will. God says that such a person, after much reproof, will suddenly be broken beyond remedy. He can't be fixed. Pause and ponder the severity of these words. Such statements are extremely rare in Scripture. Here it is, an offense that has reached the point of no return. It's beyond remedy. It's terminal. God says that's enough. Proverbs 6, a worthless person, a wicked man is he who goes about with perverseness of mouth. He winks with his eyes, speaks by shuffling or tapping his feet. He makes signs to mislead and deceives and teaches with his fingers. Willful and contrary in his heart, he devises trouble, vexation, evil continually. He lets loose discord and sows it. Therefore, listen, therefore, upon him shall the crushing weight of calamity come suddenly, and suddenly shall be broken, and that without remedy. Is it possible that America is getting close to that point of being broken and without remedy? So close we can't be fixed, so close we can't be healed. Is that where we are? 60 million babies are aborted. How close are we to God looking down on America and Miss Liberty and saying, that's enough? You're broken beyond remedy. I have called and you refused. I stretched out my hand and no man is heeded. Stretched out my hand means I bowed down to where you are. I descended into places that I normally don't go. I stretched out my hand and my hand followed you as you pursued pleasures of the flesh. My hand followed you to that motel. My hand followed you to that nightclub. My hand followed you into that casino. My hand followed you to that secret place. My hand followed you into your man cave as you turned your computer over because you've got an addiction to the flesh. My hand stretched out over and over and over and over and over and over. But could it be there comes a time when God says, that's enough. That's enough. You're broken beyond remedy. God help me, please. God help me, please. There comes a time when God says to those who stubbornly refuse to listen to him, it's enough. Your calamity will come suddenly, and there will be no healing. You will call upon me, but I will not answer. You'll seek me early and diligently, but you cannot find me. Somebody said, Pastor Vaughn, are you mad? No, I'm intense. There will be no remedy for your calamity. You will call upon me, but I won't answer. You'll seek me early and diligently, but you will not find me. But God, you've always been there. No. That's enough. You'll be broken beyond remedy. I'm going to give you quickly 4 divine examples of the severity of God. You do know we don't play games with God, and God doesn't play games with us. You do know that, right? I was sharing with someone early this morning, and I said, you know, the problem is that we have forgotten that we keep preaching to the world to turn from their wicked ways. Are you listening to me? We keep praying for our lost loved ones to turn from their wicked ways. When in fact, 2 Chronicles 7:14 says, if my people, who are called by my name, will humble themselves, seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and heal their land. It's not the world that needs a word, it's the church that needs the word. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. That means he's not scorned, disdained. For whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. Let me mention to you 4 examples. First, Sodom and Gomorrah. God, with infinite patience and grace and mercy, permitted these cities to exist until, given the immorality and the debauchery, the perversion, and the moral pollutions of their citizens, he had reached a limit with his patience toward them. Their stubborn refusal to hear his voice grew to such proportions that God finally said to his servant Abraham, in effect, that's enough. I'm going to wipe them out. Let me find 50. Rich.
All right.
Let me find 40. Yeah. Surely out of that metropolis of thousands upon thousands, I can find surely 30. Yeah. Lord, if you'll let me will you spare the city if I can find 10 righteous? I'll let you, I'll spare the city if you can find me 10 righteous men and women in the city of Gomorrah and Sodom. But there were not 10. Angels hurried to grab Lot, his wife, and his 2 daughters, and hustle them out of the city. And suddenly, irrevocably, it rained down fire from heaven. And the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah were literally no more. You see, they had reached a point that there was no remedy. They had reached a point, they were so broken, there could be no healing, no recovery. God's justice came suddenly, and the consequences were beyond remedy. The second example is King Herod Agrippa I. In Acts the 12th chapter, an appointment with Herod was granted, and when the day arrived, he put on his royal robe, sat on the throne, made a speech to them. At its conclusion, the people gave a great ovation, shouting, "It's the voice of God, not the voice of a man." He took all their praise. Instantly, the angel of the Lord struck Herod with a sickness, so that he was filled in his abdomen with maggots. And died. Jewish historian Josephus describes this event in his record. He says that at the time this occurred, Herod was dressed in silver-lined garments, and the early morning sun was reflecting brightly off his garments and his crown. As he stood there in all of his splendor, the people began calling him God, and Herod accepted their praise and their worship. And God said, "That's enough." And suddenly, Herod was stricken with a terrible pain in his abdomen. He toppled over and had to be carried to his bedchamber. 5 days later, in withering excruciating pain, he died. There was no healing. There was no recovery. There was no remedy. King Zedekiah, 2 Chronicles 36. He was 21 years old when he became king, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. He reigned, but he was so evil that it attracted the Lord's attention. He refused to take counsel from the prophet Jeremiah, who continually warned him and rebuked him, who gave him messages from the Lord. But listen to what it says. But the people mocked these messengers of God and despised their words, scoffing at the prophets until the anger of the Lord could no longer be restrained. And there was what? No longer any remedy. They could not be saved. They were beyond saving. Jeremiah pronounced one final judgment. And for that last word from God, he was put in prison and fed bread and water. But while he was in prison, out of nowhere came King Nebuchadnezzar, and his mighty army invaded the country and took over the kingdom, incarcerated this young king, brought him before Nebuchadnezzar, dropped him to his knees. And while he was on his knees, he watched Nebuchadnezzar kill every one of his children. After every one of his children's bodies were dragged out of the courtyard, they held him tight. And a big old burly soldier took a red hot piece of iron out of a fire pit, gouged each eye, and this great king was now blind, and he was imprisoned until he died. God comes to